I have a question for everybody. And the question is, has America lost her spirit? I'm going to do this video in two parts. The second part is going to talk about the 2020 election and some conclusions at the end of it all. To begin with, recent events have shown that Americans are divided, and the divide is very real. It's not the Democrats and Republicans of old. They've had their differences, but both groups believed in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Things are different now. There are four major differences. The first difference is the administration. Senior administrative people seem to think they own the joint. They seem to have forgotten that citizens elect other citizens to represent them, and it's the elected people who decide which direction to take the country, not the unelected administrative people. They have become the dreaded deep state. It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's a very real conspiracy. The second difference is the widespread nature of the problem. Permanent Washington, including the leadership of Obama's FBI, CIA, DOJ, and DNI, tried to steal the 2016 election and to interfere with Trump's efforts to run the country and to overturn the will of the people. That's not a peaceful transfer of power. That is sedition. That is treason. The Democrats, from Hillary to Obama and Biden and their crew, knowingly led and participated in the coup d'etat. They crossed a threshold from political action to criminal. They should be prosecuted. The effort to block and interfere with any investigation into their nefarious behavior, to knowingly lie about Russia collusion and lie about the first impeachment, has been a sustained, coordinated effort by both the Democrats and Permanent Washington. I believe it's criminal, and it's definitely un-American. Nancy Pelosi's deranged rush to a second impeachment is pure vindictive hate. John Durham is missing in action, and the DOJ is slow-walking everything. The third difference is the intense hatred for Donald Trump versus the intense loyalty of the deplorables. There is nothing rational or reasonable in that hate. It rises to the level of psychotic. If you have a deep hate of Trump, but you can't articulate why, sorry, you're one of those psychotics. And please, don't use your feigned shock at Trump saying he'd grab them by the pussy. Trump just said it. Bill Clinton actually did it. So get off your moral high horse. How can you ignore or dismiss Trump's impressive improvements in the economy for all Americans, lifting people out of poverty for the first time in decades? Isn't that a good thing? Aren't the Abraham Accords a real potential for peace in the Middle East, an endeavor worthy of praise? Can you say yes? How can you fault him for putting historically black colleges on a sound financial footing for the first time, or reforming the criminal justice system, or implementing Tim Scott's opportunity zones? Aren't they worthy endeavors? How do you hate the first president in your lifetime to make campaign promises and actually keep them? That's extraordinary. How do you blame Trump for the Wuhan virus? Where's the logic in that? Did the virus come from China or from Trump? Is the Democrats' desperate effort to hang the blame for the virus on Trump just payback for the millions of dollars China paid to the Bidens? If you want to climb onto a moral high horse, why not denounce the Biden crime families getting rich off selling access to the big guy, VP Joe Biden? How do you just dismiss the remarkable performance of the Trump team to ramp up and meet PPE needs and to develop and distribute a vaccine in record time? The logistics management alone is historic. Anyone who loves the American system of government should applaud President Trump's strict adherence to the 10th Amendment when managing the pandemic. The 10th Amendment says, quote, each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this Confederation expressly delegated to the United States. Trump didn't fall prey to the temptation to assume full power in the panic of the pandemic and suspend the Constitution. He shared that power with the governors of each state. So much for being the autocrat the Democrats called him. The visceral hatred of Trump by both Democrats and the establishment Republicans is both pathological and it's unhealthy. If you want to criticize Trump for some aspect of COVID-19 response, criticize him for not working on treatments for COVID instead of being so fixated on vaccine alone. But maybe cut him some slack. The pressure of collusion between Big Pharma and the mandarins at the NIH is powerful stuff. They don't want cheap therapies. They want expensive designer drugs that desperate governments will gladly pay for. And Trump did it all while crazy Nancy, lying Schiff, and corrupt Nadler tried to impeach him at every turn for any bogus reason. The fourth difference is the number of people who think socialism is a good idea. It's never worked anywhere in the world, but the Dems still think it's a good idea. Where does this delusional thinking come from? Are they really teaching this stuff in schools? How can anyone not see the corruption of Bernie Sanders, who has become rich from telling other people what's good for them? Or that Gavin Newsom has your best interest at heart while dining at the French Laundry? And who is he dining with? He was dining with the leaders of the California Medical Association, those experts who are advising him on the so-called science they obviously don't follow or believe. Apparently, Gavin didn't have his mask on between bites either. Then there's Nancy. What do you say about Nancy? She withholds approval of COVID relief for you for months while displaying her designer ice cream and her luxury freezers. There's nothing like empathy, and Nancy is nothing like empathy. She talks about helping people, but it's all talk through her virtue-signaling designer masks. Here's a Muppet news flash for you. Nancy doesn't give a rat's rump for you. That's okay. That's why it's okay for her to get a haircut, but not you. Nancy has lost her mind. Andrew Cuomo has killed thousands with his misguided COVID policies. He actually wrote a book on leadership, but failed to lead. Cuomo exhibits the height of hubris and hypocrisy all rolled into one. Democrats have completely lost their moral compass. Are you surprised? What does surprise me is that real Americans are not more outraged by what's happening and taking more action against it. Those who lie and cheat are not real Americans by my definition. Are Americans really prepared to give up their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness without a fight? Has America lost her spirit? I think it's time for a second American Revolution. Not the clumsy, confused effort of BLM, Antifa, and Trump supporters rioting and looting the Capitol. The left calls it an insurrection. It wasn't. It was just 200 or 300 yahoos who took advantage of the totally inept security posture at the Capitol. Maybe you don't want to place all the blame on the yahoos or even Trump. Maybe reserve some of your contempt for Capitol Police and the mayor, who were completely unprepared. A real revolution will be led by patriots who want a more perfect union and are prepared to pledge their life, their fortune, and their sacred honor to achieve it. Revolting against a long train of abuses and usurpations is a noble enterprise and the right thing to do. It's as American as apple pie, or the first revolution. It's time for a new Continental Congress where honorable people meet to define the rules of engagement, declare independence, and call good people to action. Stay tuned for part 2, where I talk about the 2020 election, the 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump, and what to do next. Thanks for listening.